is going on, everybody? It is Edison T. Crux, and what is this? This is not my usual kind of thing. Well, this is Gimp, also known as GNU Image Manipulation Program. This is a open source image editing program, or like graphic thing, kind of like the poor man's Photoshop, which is open source, which means that it is free and also open so that other people can modify and adjust it, which is really, really cool stuff. And what we're doing today is we are going to do this is going to be a tutorial on how to make a really cool Pokemon Nuzlocke layout or border or whatever you want to call it. A cool layout that you can have around your Pokemon game. Like if you want to do a Nuzlocke, like for example, here is my layout for my HeartGold Nuzlocke, which I made using Gimp, which I think looks pretty snazzy. And you might want something like that too. So I'm going to show you how to make that. So first things first, you want to download Gimp. I'll have a link in the description and all that stuff. You want to create a new image. Now, typically I do all my videos for 1280 by 720p or whatever you want, pixels, whatever. That's what the final video file is that goes up to YouTube. So that's what I make all my graphics for, or layouts for. So first thing you want to do is you want to get something set as like a background. Now, if you've never done GIMP or any image editing program, this might be a little bit foreign, so bear with me. But in a nutshell, over here on your left, and you can rearrange this if you want, but over here on your left is going to be all your tools, such as the move tool where you rearrange things, a fill tool, text creating tool, all your various stuff. This is your foreground color and background color, which you use when doing some of these things. And these are tool options, which varies depending on what tool you've got selected. If I totally lose you, I apologize. I've been doing video or like image editing stuff since I was like 15. So it's all kind of second nature to me. So I'm going to try not to assume you know all this stuff. So bear with me though. And over on the right here is going to be your layers. Now each different part of an image, I'll even just for convenience's sake show you back on my HeartGold Nuzlocke. Look at all these layers. Each of these things like Hepit. That is the word Hepit over there. And name boxes, each of those little boxes. You can even see when I highlight the layer, you see a little yellow thing over by that spot. I also name each of the different Pokemon graphics. And those are all different layers. So like say if I wanted to take Aya, my Weeping Bell, I could select the move tool and just click and move that layer. Just to give you an idea of what a layer means in regards to image editing. That's what a layer is. So I usually like to make a new layer. So you just click this little button there. New layer, the width of the layer is just going to be by default set to the size of the image. Layer fill transparency, that's perfect. That's exactly what you want. This is going to be just a blank layer that you're going to make for a general background. This is just your all-purpose background stuff. Now, what are we going to do for the background? Well, down here, if I can... I don't want to move that there. I want to be able to see the whole thing. Down here in this corner down here, if you can see it very well, there are these are called patterns. And these all came preloaded with GIMP. They'll probably be preloaded with yours too. And I'd recommend using something like this for your background, or at least as a starting point for your background. I actually have looked through a couple of these, and I find this paper one is a pretty neat pattern. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this fill bucket tool, and it will either fill with the foreground color, background color, or a pattern. And blend mode, opacity, all that stuff. You don't have to worry about that right now. But we want to do the pattern. And if it didn't already select it, then it'll select it here. Pattern is paper is the name of this one. So then if you just click with your layer selected, that's the active layer, they call that. Click in the open area, and it will fill that with the pattern that you had selected. Neat. So if you look, you can zoom in by pressing plus or minus on your keyboard. That's a pretty neat, just kind of generic-ish pattern there. Now I want that to be a little bit larger though. I don't want it to be quite as kind of small in the pattern. I want it to be a little bit larger. So I'm going to zoom out And on Gimp, there is this scale tool. So you click on the scale tool, and then you click on, have the layer you want active, click on it, and then you'll get this little menu thing here. Now, if you click this little link, it will lock the proportions. So it will stay the same basic proportions. The width and the height will stay proportionate to each other, which is nice. If you don't have that checked, you can go all kinds of crazy stuff. For this, it doesn't matter, but a lot of times you'll want to have that checked. For this, I actually kind of want it to be a little bit less consistent. So I'm going to do that just to make it nice and big. It'll take just a moment to load that up. It might take longer for you depending on your situation. So that, in a nutshell, is a nice, just simple, basic background. Now, you can do any number of these other things. There's a lot of really cool ones. But let's say you want something a little bit more than this. This is just too boring. You want to add some color maybe, or maybe even a little pattern. So let's add another layer quick. Same way as last time. And there's another pattern here. This one is the warning, which is kind of cool. We're going to fill the whole thing with that. It is warning. Now that obviously looks, well, that kind of even hurts to look at. Yikes. But we are going to do something kind of cool to make that look neater. First of all, let's say you want, well, let's just say a layout for, say, Fire Red, as an example, Pokemon Fire Red. The color scheme you're going to work with is going to vary depending on what game you want to do, and you want to make it kind of different for each one. So let's just assume Fire Red or something of reddish color, a reddish kind of tone. So I would go up here on the top to Colors. Hue Saturation is probably as good a way as any to do this. Now, adjusting the hue is just going to change the basic color scheme. I would find a kind of not too obnoxious reddish orangish there. That looks nice. You can adjust the lightness if you want here. I would leave this stuff as it is. Saturation, and if you're using that pattern that I showed you, then that's going to be fine. Click OK, and you make the change. Now it's red instead of yellow. Now go over to your layers over here, and you'll see on top Mode. This is the blending mode. If you click that, you'll see a drop-down menu with all kinds of different options. This is how it blends, like, opacity-wise. For example, if you click Light and Only, whoa, look at that. Only the parts that are light, which in this case is the red, will blend with with everything below it. Play around with these, find what you want. Darken will do the opposite. It'll just find the ways to make it darker. Now, you see, that looks actually kind of decentish. All of these function differently, and you'll want to play around to find what works for you. Now, a rule of thumb, I would say, when dealing... Also, you can change the opacity of it here. A rule of thumb, I would say, when dealing with layouts is... I'm going to actually try... Set it to darken. You can always adjust that. And let's try up the brightness a bit. And up the contrast. Contrast is going to be like the variance between, like... If there's no contrast, it's going to look very faded. High contrast is going to be like, whoa, up in your face. So, I want it to be kind of bright. Not quite that much contrast. That's pretty good. Rule of thumb when it comes to layouts is you really don't want it to be obnoxious. Too high of saturation, too high of just really bright and saturated stuff doesn't really look that nice. It's really more distracting than anything. This is decent. I'm actually going to try something different here. I'm going to put this back to full. Let's just try something else. Move this paper layer on top, and then play with the blending options on that. See if I can make that look any different. It'd probably be about the same-ish. But it's worth experimenting. And experimenting really is the best thing you can do. I don't think it's really worth doing up here. Oh, that's kind of cool, though. But still, that's really kind of saturated and not really that appealing on the eye. So I'm going to put that back down below. And let's just adjust this to... That looks pretty good. It's a little on the darker side, but that'll work nice. That's a good start for a background. So I'm going to go ahead and name these layers. You can double-click on the name area of a layer to give it a name. This is going to be background stripes, because it's got the background stripes. And this one is going to be background, we're just going to call it background paper because that was the name of the pattern. You can also, if you want, sometimes if you want to condense or consolidate on the number of layers, you can right click and merge down, which sometimes works pretty good. The problem is then you lose that blending options stuff. And I kind of like to keep that as an option if I want to play around with it a little bit more later. So we're going to leave those as 2 separate layers. Also, I don't really like playing with the background layer for reasons I'll show you later, because later you're going to want to probably make that invisible. If you click this little eye next to a layer, it'll make that layer invisible. So if I don't want to see the stripes, just click. Oh, there's what this looks like without the stripes. You don't want this, click. Oh, there we go. If you do that to the background layer, you get this checkerboard pattern, which means it's transparent. If you were to save something that had, like, say, a little bit here, and you saved it transparent, you could then have it so it keeps a transparent image, which is kind of nice. We're going to want to do that a lot of times. So another thing I recommend highly is saving often. Now, a real quick keyboard shortcut. Since I got a little bit of progress here, I'm going to save now. And if you hit Control S, you will get the option to save, which is always good. I'm going to go ahead and I made a special folder under my images, Nuzlocke layout tutorial. And I'm going to name this tutorial layout 1. And XCF is the saving type for Gimp files. This is a file that can be edited by Gimp. Save that. When you're done, I'll show you how to make it, how to export it using like as a JPEG or a PNG or a file you're more familiar with. So anyways, the next thing we're going to need is we got to figure out the screen size, right? That's going to be important to figure out the screen, where that's going to go here. So I actually have already gathered here a screenshot from FireRed. Now, what's important isn't so much the size, because chances are, also on the Move tool, it's usually by default pick a layer or guide, which means I could click over here and it'll grab that, or I can click over here and it'll grab that. I always prefer to work with it on Move the Active Layer. So even if I click over here, it'll move that because that is the active layer. This FireRed screenshot is the active layer. Some of the things you got to keep in mind with Gimp is that it's kind of quirky because it's open source and it's freeware. Is it as professional as Photoshop? No, it's not. Photoshop's definitely better. But with practice, you can do a lot of amazing stuff with Gimp. So anyways, the important thing with the screen size is not so much the size. This is actually the true size, pixel for pixel, of a Game Boy Advance game. Now, I don't know what kind of game you're going to be playing. I'm using Game Boy Advance as a idea because, honestly, that's one that I think a lot of people are going to use for their layouts because not everyone has capture devices, and a lot of people who are doing this are using emulators. So this is an easy system to emulate pretty flawlessly. So the dimensions, not that I'm necessarily saying, oh yeah, go crazy on emulators, but that's just the reality of it. The dimensions for a Game Boy Advance game is 240 by 160. You don't want to keep it pixel for pixel because that's pretty small. This is a 1280 by 720 screen. That's going to look tiny. So you want to get your scale tool, click on that. Now this time, this is what's important. You want to have this clicked, the link thing, so it will keep the proportions. What that means is it will stay proportionate. And really, that's what matters, is that you want this screen to be proportionate. Chances are you're going to blow up your gameplay footage anyway to work with whatever you have. You can adjust, by the way, if you didn't notice earlier, you just click on the sides. Ooh, I don't want to do that. Click on the corners with that selected and you will keep it proportioned. And if you click the center thing, you can move it around. This is just a preview, so it will smooth it out later. So don't worry about that. So that's ultimately what you want to do. Now, I would recommend having it pretty large because that's ultimately what the game is about, is that. Now, exactly how big you make it is going to depend on what else you need on the screen. If you want a face cam, you're going to want a lot of room for a face cam. If you're doing a one of the games with 2 screens, a DS or 3DS game, you're going to need space for a second screen. I'm going to assume you don't in this tutorial, but if you do, just leave some room there. Since I'm going to assume we don't need that though, we're going to let this fill almost the entirety of this area. Not quite all of it, but almost. Pretty large. Now this is just a test image. We're not gonna keep this image here. It's just to give us an idea of what we're working with. So I filled it up, not quite all the way to the edges. I'm gonna kind of center it, click on that, and just kind of use my little buttons instead of my mouse because it's a little more accurate. It'll just move one space at a time to get it right where I like it. I like to leave a little bit of a border. I think it looks nicer than it being all the way up to the edge. But that's also your judgment. You might want to have it all the way up to the edge of the graphic. That is entirely your call, but I like to leave a little bit of a border. So this is what we're looking at so far. This is at, you can see the percentage of the whole screen that this is on down here. This is at 66.7%. This is 100%, which since the video you're watching right now is at the same size as this, you can't see the whole thing when it's up like that. So I zoom out a little bit to see it. Okay, good start. Good start. We are making progress. We're going to get a lot further. I'm also going to name this layer screen because that's the screen. We're not going to use this later. You'll see my plans for that later, but this gives us a starting point. Now, this space over here is where you're going to want to use other information, such as your Pokemon in your team, which is always a lot of fun, right? Now, there's a couple different ways you can do Pokemon in your team. I'm going to show you one kind of like what I do in my Fire Red or my HeartGold, Nuzlocke. And that is I put a little Pokeball graphic and then the Pokemon's images over here. So what we're going to need is a nice Pokeball graphic. I grabbed one for just this occasion. This is a ping, transparent ping. I just click and drag it, and there it is. Now this is too large. That takes up pretty much the entire space over here. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit, get my scale tool, click on that, and then scale it down to get an idea. I'm going to need 2 across. So like bing, bing. So this should be about size, 88 by 88, if you want to follow exactly along with me here. That should be big enough that it can fit 2 to a thing. And I will show you how we're going to do that. So let's just set it like here, for example. We're going to rename this layer Pokeball 1. If you right-click, duplicate, it will duplicate that layer. It's now going to be Pokeball 1 copy. Okay? That's fine. I can keep it that way. If you really want to be technical, you can rename it Pokeball... I can't reach all the way over there. Pokeball 2. Or you can just keep it Pokeball whatever copy. Doesn't really matter. So there's actually 2 layers here now. If you do this, oh look, 2 Pokeballs. I want to keep it back there though. So I'm going to Control Z is undo, in case you wanted to know. You can also go up here to Edit, Undo, Redo. But Control Z is pretty easy to remember. So here's what you do if you want to keep it. I want to keep this perfectly lined up with the other layer. I don't want to just kind of wing it and be like, oh yeah, that looks straight. Totally. No. So the way you do that is you click on this with your move tool selected, and you can, there's 2 ways you can do it. With this clicked, you can either use your mouse or your keyboard directional buttons to move it over just 1 click at a time. That's one way to do it. Another way is click it and then hold Control. Whoa. Click it, and then while you're doing it, hold Control, and that will lock the proportions. Not perfectly, obviously. If you really are trying, it's going to be like, what are you trying to do, dude? But if you stay mostly along the orientation, it will stick to be about the same. So whichever you prefer, whatever works better for you. I sometimes when this is like right up on here, I click it and I use the control trick to kind of get it close to where I want, and then I use my mouse button, or my keyboard buttons, wow, I can't talk, to get it the rest of the way how I want it. So let's set it right about there. That should be good. Maybe move that there. Scooch this one just a few touches that way. And there we have the 2 Pokeballs set up like that, which is pretty cool. Now before we get too far, let's say you want to make them not look quite so plain. You notice in my other ones, I like to make it look kind of fancy. The way I do that is go to blend mode and play around with the blend modes so that it kind of adopts some of the traits of the background. See, that's a little bit too hard to notice there, but let's just see if we can find one that looks okay. This background, I don't think there's going to be really a whole lot. But like if you wanted something kind of subtle, that might be the way to go. That kind of makes it so like, oh, the black isn't there. That actually looks kind of okay. Right? That's kind of neat. Kind of incorporates it a little bit. Let's, oh, that's kind of cool. Screen, it also shows up a little bit. That addition, that looks kind of nice. Because if you look at that, then it's still clearly a Pokeball, but you can see some of the background coming through. That's kind of cool. So all I did was change the blend mode to addition. I do that in this one too. Addition. And then if I duplicate these anymore, then it will continue to do that. So we need 6 Pokeballs total. So what are we going to do? We're going to duplicate Pokeball 1, and we're going to drag this down. Now, I'm not going to be exact on this part. I'm going to keep it aligned like this. I'm holding control right now. But you're going to see what I mean in a moment here. I'm going to duplicate this. What I'm doing right now is making 2 columns. 2 columns of Pokeballs, 3 on each side. Now, right now, they're not going to be perfectly aligned, but that's okay. We're going to get to that. Let's go back to Pokeball 1. And this tool right here is the alignment tool. What you do is you click on a layer, and then holding, holding shift, you'll see a little plus sign by my pointer. You click the next layer, and then another layer. Now these 3 are selected for this tool. Come over here to Tool Options, and relative to the first layer, you want to align them. They should already be aligned to the center, because I used Control when I was moving them. But if they weren't aligned to the center, that would make them all center aligned, nice and even. Now what I want to do is the distribute here. I want them all to be an even space vertically. Now if you click this, they're all going to be on top of each other. That's not what I want. But change this offset down here, and that will adjust it. I know those are 88 by 88, so if I set it to, say, 100 offset, that will align them. Now they're perfectly distributed among each other. Now that looks decent. I actually think just a touch more might be better in this case. Let's try 110, and then click this again. That will be good. 110 offset for the vertical centers. Okay, now we're going to do the same for these ones. So click that. That's now the new first layer. Hold shift, plus that. And offset 100 on this distribute vertical centers. There we go. Now we're done with that. And look at that. Those are nice and evenly distributed. Now, say you want to... say you want to move those down a little bit. All of them down. They're nice and even now, but you want to move them all down a little bit. There's a spot right here by the layers. You can click that, and that will link the layers. That means if you move one, it moves them all. Ta-da! That's not where we want to put them, but let's just say we want to move them all. I'm holding shift, or control, sorry. I keep getting that mixed up. Holding control to move them down just a touch. And let's do here. That looks pretty nice. So now we have Pokeballs. And that looks nice. That's where our Pokemon are going to ultimately end up being. So I'm going to Control S to save, which is a good idea. Absolutely a good idea. Now, what do we need? What we need now is a place to put the names of these Pokemon that are going to go here, right? we're going to need names, because it's good to put your names, and you don't, strictly speaking, need it, but it is nice to have your names of the Pokemon there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the top, and you'll see we got quite a few layers going now. We're going to make a new layer, and this is going to be name box. Name box. I'm going to do, you could do name box 1, name box 2, all the way to 6. I'm just going to let it duplicate just because, well, I'm kind of lazy that way. Not really lazy, but I don't really feel I need that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this up here is a rectangle select tool. It's going to make a selection, which you'll see what that means in a moment, in a rectangle shape. However I do this. I think if you hold something, yeah, if you hold control, it'll keep it kind of centered there. If you hold shift, it will keep it proportion to a square. We don't need any of that because this is going to be more for a name than anything else. So just click there. You can also adjust it after the fact, so it's not set in stone. You can move it a little bit. That will probably do. That'll be fine. I might actually scooch all the Pokeballs around a little bit once I see this, because I want to have enough room for the name here. That should be fine. So now once that's selected, we have the right layer. We're going to go to our fill tool, and instead of doing pattern fill, because, well, that's ugly, Control Z that, we're going to fill the foreground color, which is black. And to unselect, because see this got this little ant trail, they call that. See, because it's like little ants walking? Kind of. Control Shift A deselects the selection. Now we have this little name box, which is where we can put the name of the Pokemon. Let's just try for an example. Go to our text creation tool. Click something over here, and we're going to type, let's type the name of a Pokemon. We're going to name Pokemon. Now that's, can't really see anything there. We're going to change the color over here to white. And the font, we're going to change to, I think we have to change over here. We're going to change it to Passion. Just start typing it and you'll see the options. Passion is a really nice, it's a free, or open source I think, it's free to use font. That looks really nice. That's what I use for most all of mine. And it looks good. So there, we have Pokemon. Now, due to the way that I set up the layout here, there's not really a ton of room for a super long name, so you're going to want to adjust what font size you think will work for you. You want to Control A to select the whole thing. Let's try 20. 24? 24 will probably be a nice size for this. Align it. If you want to have it aligned to the left-hand side, like that, then that will look good. Pokemon. There. Change that name to whatever you want. Now, one thing quirky about Gimp that I'm going to explain to you is if you just want to change this whole thing, select all the thing, and just start typing stuff, oh, that changed to sans. That's not the font I wanted anymore. It's kind of annoying, honestly. It does not save where you're at. So what I do, an easy workaround to keep the size, the font color, and the font and all that, is skip the first letter. Keep that there. If I wanted to write, say, I don't know, Pikachu. Pikachu. And then I go back and delete the P. That's kind of annoying, but it's, I think, less annoying than having to reset Passion 24 white every single time to make a change. So we're just going to keep that as Pikachu, because it's Pikachu. I'm going to save, because I make a habit of saving often while doing this. So now we have that. Now, the next thing is we're going to need to duplicate this, and just like we did before, we're going to want to scooch it over. I'm using just my, moving between using my keyboard buttons, directional buttons, and my mouse. That looks pretty good. I might adjust exactly where the Pokeballs are, depending on how I feel. But that looks pretty good. That's a decent name box. So now I'm going to duplicate this one again and move it sort of down there. And let's duplicate it one more time. I don't know if this is going to work because You'll notice this yellow border. That's the layer. Technically, the layer size for these, it's kind of a weird way that Gimps things up. But I don't think it's going to let me... Yeah, it's not. Okay, so better idea. Before I start doing all this duplicating and stuff, in order to make it easy to totally accurately distribute these, I need to get the layer size to be the same as this. Because right now, you'll notice if I move the layer, that's that name box, the layer, Gimp thinks the layer is the size of the whole image, and that's just one part of it. And that's, I mean, that is technically accurate, but that's not really going to help me with distributing it. You'll notice with Gimp, when you work with Gimp, there's a lot of assorted things like that happens. So a workaround, and there's a lot of workarounds, is I'm going to right-click on the layer, alpha to selection. Now, we're going to use this a lot. That means the alpha layer, which is just what's visible, is going to become a selection. Okay, cool. We are now going to Control X that cut. You know, it deleted that and put it in a copy. And then Control V to paste. Now, it's going to make it as a floating layer. You then just have to click New Layer, and boom, you have a pasted layer. The old name box layer we have, that's the size of the whole image, we can delete. And this pasted layer is now going to be name box. And it is now, you can see from that yellow border, that's the size of the layer now, is correct. It is just that part. That's a really great workaround if you want to do that. So you just do alpha to selection, cut or copy, whatever, and then paste, and then new layer, and then there you go. Bada bing, bada boom. So now, the reason we did that is because we got to distribute them evenly, just like we did with the Pokeballs. I'm not even going to make it too close. I'm going to also hide the Pikachu layer, because sometimes when you're clicking these, it would think that I was clicking on this Pikachu text, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to make that not visible, so I make sure I'm clicking the right things. So again, I'm shift-clicking these two to make sure they're all aligned. The offset is still saved from earlier at 110. Bada bing. Now they're all exactly distributed the same among each other, just like the Pokeballs are. Now I'm going to do the same. Duplicate this first one. Scooch it over here to right around there. There's a little bit of space in between them, which is nice. I can also move this to the end, just so they're kind of in order. It doesn't really matter. Some people's OCD about that kind of stuff is going to matter more, and you can make your layers nice and organized, and however it makes you happy. Me, as long as I know what I'm doing, that's really all that matters to me. There. Now we got to do the same, or at least most of the same, with the text layers. I'm going to duplicate them, and, you know, I guess I could even, yeah, I could, well, let's scooch you to there. Pikachu. Pikachu! It's Pikachu! And we're just going to scooch them not exactly, because I know the offset is going to do the rest of the work. Click that, and that. The offset of 110, because that's what we determined is the space we want it to be, and now they're going to be perfectly, evenly aligned. Now we got to do the same with this one. Get back to our move tool. If you don't move them just a little bit, it doesn't even have to be even close to where you want to be. But if you don't move them a little bit, then you can't click them with this align tool. So, like I say, Gimp is not the perfect image editor. But for free, it is amazing for the price. It is absolutely amazing for the price. Now what I do, since off the bat, in the beginning, you're not going to have 6 Pokemon, I just hide the text layers that you don't need. And then when you need them, okay, so you got your first Pokemon, gonna reveal that layer, change it, say you got a Charmander named Chari. Then I, again, leave the first letter so you keep all this stuff set up. And then just go back. Chari. Yeah. We're gonna stick with Pikachu, because it's Pikachu! Because that's the only Pokemon you want to have, right? So, great! Now we're set up for that. Now the only thing we need is the actual Pokemon, right? Now, I recommend whenever you're doing Pokemon graphics that you always stick to official artwork. I actually have a folder of Pokemon graphics. This is all official artwork that I just managed to get. I would not use any fan art that you don't have permission from the artist for, just because that's kind of rude. And you're already using official Pokemon stuff from the game, obviously, so it all is falling under the same fair use if you use official artwork. So just make sure you do that. Again, that's mostly for legal reasons, and I'm not a legal expert. That's just kind of my stuff. But if you really want to play it safe, then play it safe. So, okay, we're going to move. All I did was click and drag from my file browser the Pikachu that I want. Send them in here. Now I move the layer. This is actually kind of important. I'm going to rename this instead of 25. I'm going to rename it Pikachu because it's easier to keep track of that way. Did it say Pikachu number? That's weird. I don't know why I did that. All right. Now, the reason why the layer order matters now is because now, if I have it under the name box but above the Pokeball, that means, oh, look at that. It's going to look really it's going to look really snazzy. But this Pikachu is a little bit too big, unless like you're doing a solo Pikachu challenge. So we're going to get out our scale tool. Click on that. Make sure the proportions stay the same, because you don't want your Pikachu to get all flat and chunky. That don't look right. Reset. So keep the proportions correct. Now again, this that you're seeing right now is just a preview. Once you got it set how you want it, it will readjust and properly make it look nice. And now you can just kind of put it right where you want, and voila! Pikachu! That looks cool. It's kind of under the name, over the Pokeball. It's a nice, visually appealing way to go for a Pokemon. You can also do that for each of them. You can remove them if you want. We're just going to leave Pikachu there. And you can do that same process for however many Pokemon you have. You've got all of the locations for the names set up. So you just make them appear, change the name to what you need, and put another Pokemon in between the Pokeball layers and the name box layers. And then you're set to go as far as that goes. I'm going to save again because it's good to save. Now we have a few other things of finishing touches that you might want to include. One of which is, and this is something that is really a fun touch for Nuzlocke. I'm actually going to copy this text for this, because if you copy that, it keeps most of your settings the same, which is just saves a little bit of time. So deaths and badges, a death count and a badge count, is usually handy to have in a Nuzlocke. So I'm going to, again, keeping that P, the first letter, so that it doesn't lose all my stuff. I'm going to write deaths. Go back and remove the P. I'm also going to align this. I'm going to select it all. And over here on the tools options, this is the justify, which means is it going to be aligned to the left, aligned to the center, or aligned to the right? Well, I said that in the wrong order. I want it to be aligned to the right, which means that if I start typing more, okay, it's supposed to be doing this. It does not appear to be doing quite what I hoped. Oh well. It doesn't really want to play nicely. Again, one of the things with Gimp is you just kind of got to work with what you got. So deaths, 0, because we're starting out, and if you start out with a death, that's no good, right? So I'm gonna say deaths go around there-ish. Let's move that up because I want it above. I keep my layers kind of organized. Let's duplicate that. Move it, again, holding control to keep it kind of aligned. I'm going to now do badges. Nice. There. Now the problem with that is, if you look at this, there's no border around the text. And sometimes, depending on what background you have, that's going to be kind of obnoxious looking. And you don't want to be obnoxious. If you have one goal, that's not to look obnoxious on your layout. That's a really good goal, is to not be obnoxious. Unfortunately, now most image editing programs like Photoshop, there's an option to just make a border. There's not that option exactly in Gimp, but there is a workaround. It's a little bit annoying, but there's a workaround. Go just below, make a new layer, just below the text that you're going to do. Okay? Blank layer just below that. Click on, we're going to do deaths. Right click on death, or whatever your font is. Alpha to selection, remember that? Now it took the visible part of that, made it a selection. Click on your below layer. We're going to actually name this layer border, because that's what this is going to be. Go up here to select, up here, and grow. This is going to grow the selection by, let's just do probably 2 pixels is plenty. There, now the selection got bigger by 2 pixels. Now you go to your fill tool, make sure the foreground is black, and click in that space. Then you Control-Shift-A to release the selection, and look at that, you have a border now. This layer is the border. You can get rid of it if you want. You can do the same with this one. You can actually, if they're not touching, you can have them share the same file if you want. You might want to do a separate, or not the same layer if you want. If they're touching, it gets a little complicated. Like if this was right all up in the death counts business, it would be kind of complicated, but it's not. Now, the drawback to this is, say, okay, this looks great. Now you can see it easily. It's got a nice border. But what about when you change it? Like, let's say, oh, tragedy struck and someone died. You change that to 1. Well, now that doesn't work because the layer is showing a border for a 0. That kind of works okay, but it's not right. What you got to do then, and this is why it actually might be easier to have separate layers for deaths and badges, is Control-A to select this entire border layer and delete it. Then go through the whole process again. Start from scratch. Is this kind of annoying? Yeah, it is. Not gonna lie. Having to redo it every time you make a change is annoying. But it is doable. And again, this is free software. So being able to do this at all is really pretty cool, honestly. Wow, look at that. We're really getting somewhere. Now, this space up here is a decent place to put your name, your title, the title of the Pokemon game you're playing. For example, I'm going to go to my video files, and let's just go to my Fire Red. I've got a, no, that's art, that's the wrong thing. I've got a graphic that's my Fire Red Nuzlocke logo. That's just for example's sake. Whoa, that's big. Which is good. You want it to be nice and high quality. But let's say if you got a logo, move this on down, and you can pop that up there. Ta-da! You can also put a face cam there. I mean, I'm sure you've seen plenty of layouts, and you know more or less what to expect from them. You also, if you want to have a little bit more room over here, you could make the screen a little bit smaller. You want the screen to be nice and big, but this is a good way to do it. You can also put, like, if you have a favorite Pokemon or like an image of you or whatever you want, you could, this is really good space for that. You know what, let's just actually, somewhere, I've got a thing, I think I've got it in my liquid crystal graphics. Ha! Ta-da! This is actually in the bottom of the thing. Wait, did it become the background? Okay, no, it didn't. Good. I'm going to bring this up here. Actually, I want this to be lower. So down near the bottom, actually, below all the Pokeballs. And actually below the screen, too. Above the screen, why not? I'm going to put this image of me, because sometimes it's nice to have something in that space there. Blank space is boring. So this is, ta-da, look at that. Look at that. That looks pretty neat, actually. Whatever, obviously this is not Edison's Fire Red Nuzlocke, because this is going to be for whatever you're making. But this is a decent idea of just how you can utilize the space to make a nice looking layout. Having this paper layer makes it so that it's not as boring as just a striped thing. There's a little bit of texture to it, a little bit going on. And it's also, this is important, it's not super saturated. Some people have just these like crazy bright colors going into crazy dark colors, and it really does not look nice. So now let's do some finishing touches. Because it's not, is it necessary? No, but there's some nice touches you can do. I like to put a little bit of a dark border around the screen. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do alpha to selection. We're going to make a new layer just below the screen. This is going to be screen border. Once again, we're going to grow it by, let's try 3. Yeah, that's nice. Now, if I just fill it now, that is it's okay, but it's a sharp border. And that's not exactly what I want. So I just Control-Z twice before I filled it. And then we're going to do feather. Feathering it makes it look kind of fuzzy on the edges. Makes it look more like a glow. Now look at that. Look at that. Much more of a just gradual, oh, it's like a glow. Like if I take that off, you can see how that changed a little bit there. Oh, it's just got kind of a little glow to it. I'm actually going to undo that a bit. And I'm actually going to make it just a little bit larger. I want it to be, see how 5 looks, but feathered. That might be 5 with a 5 feathered. That might be too much. You know, I kind of like that though. It does kind of get close to that, but it's not a bad look. And then it makes it so, it makes it look more like the screen belongs there. I think that looks nice. It's a subtle touch. And another thing, talking about subtle touches, let's go back up to this up here, your title, which if you can have a title, it's nice. It might not look super fancy. It doesn't have to look super fancy, but something is nice. Let's make a drop shadow for this. We're going to name this title shadow. It's a blank layer. And once again, alpha to selection, that age-old trick that I have been advocating. We're going to do the same basic thing as we did before. Let's do a grow by 3. Yeah, let's do 3. Grow by 3. And feather by decent sized feather. Let's do 7. That's quite a feather. Click it. And yeah, look at how that looks up there. That's very fuzzy, which is what you want. But now to make it look more like a drop shadow, have that layer clicked. Click here and then just use your keyboard buttons and just move it like 2 to the right, 2 down. 1 to the right, 1 down. Now, look at that. Look at that. It looks more like a drop shadow. You can even drop the opacity just a touch if you want. Just drop it like 80. Doesn't have to be much. Doesn't have to be much. And now it looks much more like it belongs there. Take that off and it's just kind of like you just did a copy and paste job. Add a little thing like a drop shadow and it looks so much smoother. Let's go ahead and do the same thing with the little Edison here. The little Edison. I'm going to do new layer. We're going to name it Edison Shadow. And once again, alpha to selection, which I use all the time. Grow. Let's just have it grow by 2. I don't want it quite as big. And feather 5 probably is plenty, honestly. We're on the right layer. Ta-da! Now we just click and do like mouse or the keyboard buttons 2 to the right, 2 down. 2 right, 2 down. 1 more to the right. Now look at that. Look at that. You could even, like I say, just drop the opacity like 90. Or depending on what the background looks like, you could adjust the blend mode. Sometimes looks really nice. And that just looks, I'm going to actually move it 1 more back to the left. Now look at that. Look at that. That looks so much better than just that. Boom. Looks like I belong there. That little touches like that really do add to the professionalism. Now look at this. Look at this layer we just made, or this layout we did. This looks much nicer so far, and you have all that you need already here to add Pokemon as you need them. You can get rid of Pokemon as you need them. Just boop, there goes Pikachu. Last thing you want to think about is, okay, when you're doing your video editing, how are you going to put this on there? Well, there's two different ways you can do it. You can either get rid of that, and this can be your layout. And then you would, in your whatever video editing program you have, put the file of the screen on top of this. So this would be below it in your video editing program. Or the other way that I usually do most of the time is I will take this, again, alpha to selection, because I use it all the time. So this is the size of the screen. Then go to all of the lower layers, the screen border, and then hit delete. And then go to this background, this, and hit delete. And then go to this one and delete. And then you can control Shift A to get rid of that. And then the background, make it invisible. What this means is then the area where the screen is supposed to be is transparent. And then you can put this on top of the video footage in whatever video editing program you have. I usually prefer this way in most of my layouts I do. I prefer to have this on top, but that's a totally matter of your preference and also your video editor, I suppose. So how do we then get this saved? Now we know saving it like we've been doing is in this XCF file. That's what this edited thing is with all the layers and everything, but we need a final file here. So how are we going to do that? What you do is export, and export it to wherever you're at, and name it whatever you need. Yeah, 1 is fine. Pings will have transparency as an option. If you're going the transparency route, you want to save it as a ping. If you want to save it as a JPEG, all you got to do is just change this to JPEG or JPG. But we want it to be a ping because we're going the transparent route. So the way in Gimp that you choose what extension is you just type in the extension there and then hit export. This little thing will come up, export images ping, with some options. Most of the default is going to be great. You just want to make sure that this, save color values from transparent pixels, make sure that is selected. That will make sure that the middle area there, where the screen goes, is transparent. Pings can save transparency, JPEGs cannot. So that's just worth noting. And there you go. Now if we go to my file here, look at that. We have a tutorial layout 1 ping. Very nice. And if I had a video editor, I could pop this in there and put the video behind that, and it would look nice. It would look beautiful. Now, when you're making changes, when you need to make a change, say, okay, we now caught, or now let's say, I don't know, we caught another Pokemon. Let's just use that as an example. You need to, let's just say we caught a, I don't even know what. Charmander. Let's just say we caught a Charmander. Then all you gotta do is drop that in next to your Pikachu on the layers. Get this to be the size you're gonna want, so it's not too obnoxiously big. Ta-da! That looks good. Rename that to Charmander, or don't. That's up to you. Find whichever one of these was the text layer. Hopefully one of these was. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, one of these. This one. This one's the one. And then remember to keep the first letter so that it saves the rest of your stuff. Charmander. Aha, look at this. It's too big, though. That's a problem. It is too big for the space allowed. Simply select it all, and this is the problem, though, is I can't... I couldn't see over here, and this is kind of the derpy thing. GIMP and text editing is not the greatest. But down in this corner here, there's this navigate the image, and that let me go over enough. Because otherwise, just using these things, I couldn't go over all the way to be able to select this. So select the whole of your text and make this just a little bit smaller. Is that enough? Let's just try 20. Okay. Now we have Charmander. Now it's a little bit tall there, so I'm just going to Drop it. And voila. Now we have Charmander. Now what I do is I just save one master Gimp file, the XCF file, but then when I export this as layout 2, which means any changes. That means when you're doing your video, see, now we go back here. Let me just get back to where I was at. Now look, there's layout 1, and then layout 2 has the changes. So that means that whenever you do a change, whenever you make something different, then you just make it as another image, and then you just do like a fade effect from one image to the other on your image edit or your video editing program. It varies depending on what you use. But that, in a nutshell, is how I make my layouts and how I maneuver them. So I hope this tutorial has been really helpful for you as well. And there will be links in the description if you want to try this for yourself. Again, everything I've done here was using free software. Gimp is free. I just use official artwork from the Pokemon stuff. The font I use is free. Everything was free. So there's no excuses there. It's just a matter of trial and error and practicing with it. So if you enjoyed this tutorial, if this really helped you out, hit that like button so I know that this was something you enjoyed seeing. And if you want to see more tutorials on how to, say, run a Nuzlocke well, or if there's any other kind of tips or tricks you want, leave those comments. Let me know what you're struggling with as far as getting a Nuzlocke series set up. I would love to help do more tutorials if they're helpful. So thank you all for watching, and good luck with your videos coming up, okay? Catch you later, everybody.